Okay, friends, we're going to do something a little different this morning. We're going to have two very short shiurim. Okay, I want to go back to a point on Daf Samach Zayin. I've been thinking about this for a while, and then something on Daf Samach Ches. Daf Samach Zayin Amabez, the Gemara tells us that Rabbi Glatstein was riding on a donkey. He was coming out of Yerushalayim, and his students were following him, and he saw a girl who was gathering barley from the dung of the animals of the Arabs. When she saw him, she wrapped herself in her hair, and she said, "Rebbe, support me." He says, "Who are you?" She said, "I'm the daughter of Nakdima ben Gurion." He said, "What happened to your father's money?" She said, "Is the parable not in vain? The salt of money is distributing it, being miser, melach, mamayin chasar, and some say melach, mamayin chesed." Fine. So Gemara asks, "V'Nakdima ben Gurion lo yavad tzedaka?" Nakdima ben Gurion didn't give tzedakah, but the Brisa says that Nakdima ben Gurion, when he would leave his house to the Beis HaMedrash, they would spread out silk behind him, and the Aniyim would come, and they would collect the silk from under him. So Gemara gives two answers. Some say he did it for his own honor. Some say he didn't give enough. Like people say, "Lefum gamla shichana," in accordance with the camel is the load. So the Gemara gives two answers. Nakdim ben Gurion certainly gave tzedakah. He gave a lot of tzedakah. The Gemara says either he didn't have the right kavanos. Answer number one. Answer number two is he didn't give enough. Fine. So I want to focus on both answers. Let's start with the first one. First one, the question is obvious. Who cares if he did it for his own kavod? Number one, the Gemara says if somebody gives tzedakah so that their son should live, they're a tzaddik gamor. The Gemara Pesachim on Daf Ches. And even if you're mechavin for the mitzvah and for your own benefit, you're a tzaddik gamor. You're a tzaddik gamor. Now Rashi learns that it's talking about if you're mechavin for both things, for benefit and for the mitzvah. So, I want to show you, the Maharsha asked this question and Rabbi Elchanan asked this question. Let's start with the Maharsha. The Maharsha says, says the Maharsha, "L'hai terutza mashma, da'afilu hava avid kidabai l'mevad." The first answer is saying, he gave enough tzedakah. He gave enough. But he didn't do it for the mitzvah. Kivan d'loi asa kein mishum mitzvah ela l'chvaydai havalei shaloi l'shma. It's shaloi l'shma v'nenash. Why would he be punished? Ve'en lahakshos ha'amrinan gabi tzedakah afilu shaloi l'shma yesh lo yischar aleh k'damrinan ha'imar sel azul l'tzedakah bavur sheyichya v'ni harei zeh tzaddik gamor. Okay, so the question number one of the Maharsha is that the Gemara tells us explicitly by tzedakah, if you give tzedakah for an ulterior motive, you're a full-fledged tzaddik. Not only you're not punished, not only you're rewarded, you're righteous. You're a tzaddik gamor. Not only are you a tzaddik, there's nothing deficient in your righteousness. So what's wrong with what Nakdima ben Gurion did? Who cares if he did it shaloi l'shma? So the Maharsha answers, "V'yesh laimar, hai shaloi l'shma l'kavod hu garatvei." A loi l'shma of l'kavod is worse. Now, you need to know that this is machlokes rishonim. V'yesh laimar, hai shaloi l'shma l'kavod hu garatvei, kamay shemachalken ha'toisus b'psachim. Right? We know famously the rishonim ask. It says, "La'olam yaseh gadam termitzvah shaloi l'shma." Other places it says if you do mitzvah shaloi l'shma, noyach lo shaloi nivra. So there's a discrepancy in the Rishonim. Some Rishonim learn that when is it better that you were not created? That's if you do it l'shem l'kanter. You learn in order to argue. So then it's better not being created. But if you do it for ulterior motives, for olam haba, so then that will bring to lishma. But the Maharsha says that shaloi lishma lekavod is worse. I mean, there's a question in the Rishonim. Let's say somebody learns to get kavod, to be called Rebbe. So is it only lekanter, to argue? Do we say that that's better that you are not created? And in that case, if you're doing it for kavod, then we say mitach shalai lishma ba lishma. Or do we say mitach shalai lishma ba lishma is only if you're doing it for olam haba, or your son should live. But if you're doing it for kavod, then it's better that you weren't created. So the Maharsha is sort of locking in this answer of the Gemara with the Rishonim, that just like if you do a mitzvah to cause trouble, it's better not to do it. So too, if you do a mitzvah for kavod, it's better not to do it. He said again, this shalai lishma in our Gemara is for kavod. It's gara tvei. Afilu shalai lishma, uva alma amrinon toiv loy shalai nevra. Usually we say it's better not to be created. V'rabim b'dar hazeh, many people in this generation, shemekabtzin oisher shalahen, they gather their wealth shalai be'emuna, unfaithfully. Uvechil Hashem, desecrating God's name, kigzela soivekecham, like stealing from Gentiles. V'achar kach misnadvim eyosimam liyoslahem kavod b'chol shana, and then they make a big donation in the shul, so everyone should go, ooh, ah. Yeah, but they stole the money from a guy, so they're mechal shem shamayim. V'las islahem berchas mishaberach, they want to have a public mishaberach, liyoslahem shem v'teferes. Ve'ein ze el mitzvah haba ba'avera, it's a mitzvah that comes with sin. Ve'in la'ishar zeh melach. That money has never been salted. V'kiyam, it will not remain. Keda'amar hacha. So basically, the Maharsha is learning that if you give tzedaka only for kavod, it's worse. Meaning shaloi lishma is okay, but not if you're doing it for kavod. Now there's another question here that the Maharsha didn't ask. That l'chayr by tzedaka, kavana is not needed. We don't make a bracha when you give tzedaka. Even the shita, that mitzvah tzrichas kavana, by tzedaka l'chayr you don't need kavana. Because the mitzvah of tzedaka is not sticking your hand in your wallet and doing that act. If the mitzvah was the act, you need kavana. The mitzvah is the result. The result is the ani has something to eat. It's irrelevant to the ani what your kavana is and what you're thinking. So normally by tzedakah we would say kavana is irrelevant. It seems though, but negative kavana, meaning even the opinion that mitzvos tzrichos kavana, even though they hold for tzedakah you don't need kavana, but negative kavana would be disruptive of the mitzvah. Now let's see how Rabbi Elchanan looks at this sugya. Rabbi Elchanan in the Kavod Shiurim, he brings that in Psachim Daf Ches, Rashi says that if you give tzedakah so that your son should live, if that's an additional kavana, then you're a tzaddik gamor. So the Maharsha, the Rabbi Elchanan says in his first answer, it has to be that over here. The situation is that when do we say Harei Zeh Tzaddik Gamor? That's if you're mechavein for the mitzvah and for kavod. You're mechavein for the mitzvah and kavod, great. Mitach shalai lishma ba lishma. But if you're only mechavein for kavod, then there's a oynesh. In other words, you're right. We say that mitach shalai lishma ba lishma. That's if you're also mechavein for the mitzvah, not if you're only mechavein for something else. The Rabbi Elchanan asked, though, how is it possible to say that Nakdimon Ben Gurion, who's one of the three people that the sun shone for him, he definitely was also mechavin l'shem mitzvah. Bevadei kishas tzedakah oisek kamnas l'shem mitzvah. So Rabbi Elchanan ends up saying, like the Maharsha, that if your intention is so that your son should live, that's okay in combination with serving if you do, says Rabbi Elchanan, when does the Gemara say if you're mechavin that your son should live, it's okay? That's in combination with also being mechavin for the mitzvah. So having in mind the life of your son is okay in combination with being mechavin l'shem mitzvah. But doing it for your own kavod, that's not okay if you're mechavin also l'shem mitzvah. Meaning, shituf in kavana is only alright if the lesser kavana is so that your son should live. Not if your lesser kavana is for your own kavod. Why? He quotes the Chavos Havavos, it's like serving God and another God. You're serving Hashem and yourself. And Rabbi Elchanan says that might be the reason why the tzedakah of the nations of the world is a sin. He says they only do it lehispa'er. I guess Rabbi Elchanan is bothered. Well, they probably also have in mind to be helpful. Because otherwise you could say, well, their only kavana is lehispa'er. But it seems like Rabbi Elchanan is saying it's not logical that that's their only kavana, b'chlal. But now let's focus on the second answer of the Gemara. The Gemara says that he didn't give enough. So I would have learned he didn't give enough. Let's say he was supposed to give Meiser, he gave 9%. Or according to the Rambam holds you're obligated to give 20%. You know that? There's a stira in the Rambam. In one place the Rambam says it's a mitzvah to give a chaymesh, in another place he says it's an obligation to give a chaymesh. So the Gemara says it depends. If there are needy people in front of you, you're obligated to give a chaymesh. If you just want to, if they're not banging down your doors, then it's a mitzvah to give a chaymesh. So whatever amount he was supposed to give, he didn't give enough. That's how I would have learned. Rabbi Elchanan quotes a Chafetz Chaim who learns differently. Let's say a guy is a multi-billionaire. Yeah, let's say he has $100 billion. You think he could get away with giving $20 billion? Absolutely not. He has to give much more. Someone who is extremely wealthy and has a lot more money than they need to live, they need to give a lot more than just 10 or 20%. Well, what do they need the money for? What are they going to do with the money? What could they possibly do with it? Use it for a tissue? What are they going to do with it? Use it to clean in between their teeth? They have nothing to do with the money. They bought every possible human pleasure. So
he was willing to support your shalayim when under siege for over 20 years.
Yeah, and it's still not enough. Still not enough. In other words, again, I would have said he didn't give his halachic requirement. But Rabbi Elchanan says no, he gave his halachic requirement. However, he still could have done more. Now, he's punished for that? So the Chafetz Chaim said it's talking, the Gemara in Menachos says in Daf Mem Aleph, another thing, or let's say tzedakah you have to give 10 or 20%. Let's say even according to the way I would learn. If someone doesn't give the requisite amount, is there punishment for not giving sufficient tzedakah? It's a mitzvah saseh. There's no punishment for a mitzvah saseh. However, the Gemara Menachos says, "Be'idan rischa anshin alei." At a time of anger, a person is punished for. That means even something that you would not be punished for ordinarily, at a time of anger, we're punished. It could be the hashgacha has it, that the soldiers now are, they're giving out a lot of tzitzis to soldiers, because ordinarily if somebody doesn't wear tzitzis, there's no punishment. Even if somebody wears dalet kanfos and doesn't put tzitzis on it, there's no punishment for being mevatel mitzvah. But at a time of anger, at a time of danger, there is such punishment. So the Chafetz Chaim says it was a time of the Churban Habayis. There's no greater idan rischan than that. And that's why the punishment was so severe, because be'idan rischa, Hashem punishes even for bittul aseh. Okay, so this is the Gemara's two answers are very interesting. Either he did it l'chvoidai, or he didn't do Kedibay Leila Meva. That's Daf Samach Zayin. We did a shir on Daf Samach Zayin, but I want to do another one. Okay.